Hello, everybody. This is episode 21 of ZK Live. I'm Zach Kenney. Today we're going to be interviewing Amy from Amy Lynn Interiors. Hello.
Hi. Whoa, this is so zoomed in. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I heard you say airplane mode. Is there any other thing that I have to do to?
I thought I had it down with airplane mode and do not disturb, and I just got a phone call. I have Wi-Fi enabled calling on.
Oh, okay.
So I guess I still get phone calls during that.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. So this is exciting.
I know. This is so crazy. I've decided to push the podcast envelope and do it live, which
I like that.
was not really well thought out, maybe, but it's been.
It gives people the rawness. I definitely understand the back end of the podcasting and the editing. It's a lot of work. I miss it, actually. I miss a lot of it. So
I know. I want to hear the story of what happened with that at some point.
Oh, sure. It's not even it's more of like it's a financial engagement. But there is something in the works. So I will be back doing podcasts soon.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So for people who don't know you, can you just give us a brief rundown of who you are and what you do?
Yeah. I'm Amy Lynn Allard, and I own my own interior design business. It's called Amy Lynn Interiors. I've been in the industry, in the design industry, we'll say, for 9 years. And when I say that, I've kind of been all over the place, and I've been in my own, running my own business for the last 2.5 years. So
how long? Sorry, how?
It's been pretty. Oh, do I have bad service?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Am I good?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. What'd you say? How long?
How'd you get into interior design?
How'd I get into it?
Yeah.
So I grew up around design. My aunt was a stained glass artist. My grandfather did cane chairs. My grandmother built wagons. I was kind of always thrown into some area of being creative. We drew like mandalas every day. And then my other grandfather, who couldn't lift a hammer, we would sit there and watch Tim the Tool Man every weekend. And he was like, you're gonna be a designer. And at that point, I had no idea what it was, because we grew up in a very, not like rich family, but a designer to a middle class family was like, what is that? Like, what do you, what do you mean? So it really wasn't something that I thought I was going to do, but it's almost like my whole family knew I was going to do it before I did. So
crazy.
It's one of those things where it's like you knew when you were born, but I don't know. I feel like you hear actors say that. You never hear like a designer saying that.
You definitely don't hear a painter saying that.
I know, right? Or it's like a carpenter. It's more of like a truck driver, a singer.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that's how I got into it.
Yeah. So getting into interior design, so you went to college specifically for that?
Yes. Yep. I went to Mount Ida, was there for interior design. I wish I did a minor in business or sociology. I think there's a lot of crossovers with that. And I do also wish that there was more of an opportunity to cater your major to what you're interested in, because there's a lot of just classes that were to meet an agenda that wasn't what I wanted. I wish I could have taken additional classes that was within my major to better suit myself for a career in interior design. What I mean by that is the only thing I really learned from college was the 2x4 isn't a 2x4. And I'm not saying people shouldn't go to school for design. I think it's great to learn the history of design. I definitely learned a lot about that, but the majority of things that I put into my business, I really learned from my years being in the industry, the mistakes that I've made, watching other people make mistakes. And maybe that's just my own personal learning style, is I do learn from physically performing and watching things getting done, versus book stuff for me wasn't my strong suit.
Yeah, that's interesting. School is, everybody thinks school is this like amazing place. You look, everything you get's there, and it's like, it's just like the you do it just to be able to like get in the door and then actually start to learn stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And I definitely think it's a good pay negotiation strategy. It's also a great way to get an opportunity versus someone who has zero schooling. So there's a lot of benefits, but it's just an expensive benefit. And if you can convince someone to give you an opportunity, knowing that you don't have a leg up because you don't have education, but you can explain to them like, this is why I have education where it'd be beneficial for you. Like I've messed up on these other jobs, like, and I've learned from them. May not sound like it's the attractive thing to say, but everyone wants to know that you're human and make mistakes and you've learned from them. It'd be silly for you to go in there and kind of like tackle it that I don't have schooling and I'm perfect. So
Yeah.
I think experience speaks louder.
Yeah. So if you were going to tell somebody today that was like a diehard kid that just loved design, maybe don't go to college and go find an internship out of high school with a design.
What I would say is if school is something that you're like, I'm dying to go do, I would try to cater your classes to a specific agenda and don't just take like a math, like geometry you're gonna need. You're never gonna need algebra. You're never gonna need pre-calc. None of like all of those classes that they make you take are such a waste of time and get in the way of what you're really there for and what you're paying a lot of money to be there for. So if you could cater your agenda for that, that would make the most sense. And I would 100% get into the internship as early as you can. Sorry, that's my dog in the back. Apparently she has something to add. Come here. But so that would be my answer. I don't want to say don't go to school, but I think if you're going to, and because there are some people that are just like very school driven and maybe they have a different way of learning. And I just know my learning, there's actually a bunch of tests online. I'm big on to knowing like my learning type, my arguing type, how I retain and learn things. I would say that figure out how you learn best and then really get your roadmap to that point. So
yeah. So you did an internship in college?
I didn't, and that is why I have recently decided that a heavy focus on my business is I have an internship program, and I have the most amazing intern right now from Endicott, and I want to be so heavily involved with these interns because I'm like, if they can help me with see how I build my business, or they can help me with my business, their wheels will start to kind of turn for them when they're in school, and they look at things a little bit differently. And when you're in school, you see a great example. I did a beehive project. I was inspired by a beehive. You literally walked into this room and you felt like you were like the queen bee. And I'm like, why did I have to take things so literal? It was so bad. It was the worst project. I look back at it and I'm like, and my teacher's like, this is so great. You really took this theme home. And I'm like, absolutely. Like, I look back and I'm like, that was so mean of her to tell me that was an amazing job because that was awful. So this intern that I have working with me, she, a big goal for me was to have her take inspiration and take pieces of it. Don't take it as its whole. Like you can see a picture of, for example, a terrible paint job. And I'm like, so you see this color, I mean, you see the texture of this, like I kind of want that in the middle, but almost like more scratched and more rustic, a little bit of rust looking in it. And she's like, oh, that's interesting. I would have never seen that when I look at a paint, like a poor paint job. I would have never gotten inspiration from that. And I think working with designers who have created their own style, you start to see how they pull inspiration, and it's not direct the way you do in college. They don't tell you like dig deeper. They just say, oh, that's great. Like, I don't know. It's just a different, and I'm only talking from my own experience, but I think internships are great because you kind of get into the real world and you're told that's awful. Like, do it again. Like, I can't show that to my clients. So my intern, I realized I can't handle more than one. Just because I really do want to put a lot of focus on them, and it is a lot to get an agenda ready for them for the day. But she is absolutely crushing it, and her eyes just like light up whenever she's asked to do something because it's just so different than what her curriculum is. So to answer your question, I was not in an internship, and that was something that I really, really wish that I had the opportunity for.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a lot of responsibility, I think, to have an internship program or have interns, and to do it in a way that's like beneficial to them takes a lot of work and is a big responsibility.
Yeah, and also for you, for us as business owners, we want, it's like I don't want to show her how to do something and then have, Chloe, come on, show her how to do something and then have to redo it for her, because then it's kind of defeating the purpose of having her handle it. And I think it's a great prep for me for hiring an employee as well, where I'm able to kind of see how well I am at managing and see how well I am at delegating tasks and preparing them for her, and being a teacher. It's definitely, it makes me feel a little bit more respect for my teachers. It is an incredibly hard thing to do, is to be patient, to teach someone something that they don't know. It's like, where do you start? Do you go to the grocery store to buy the bread to make the peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Or do you need to like earn the money to buy the bread? Like, how far back do you need to start the process with them? And finding that sweet spot is exhausting.
That's fascinating. So you were talking about design, and I would, first of all, if you ever have a picture of this beehive room, I would love to see it.
That went in the trash like the year after I graduated. My mom was like, "Do you want to save this project?" I'm like, "Mom, why are you still holding on to that?"
But so that idea of failing a lot, I think we talk about that a lot on here, and how important it is to have failed a lot, and how everyone that's successful has failed a lot and learned
Yeah.
from it. I'm interested in hearing. It was cool that it's got my brain thinking when you say that about design and not being super literal, but like sort of taking influence from things. How does your design? What does your design process look like? I've always been very impressed by good designers.
Yeah.
They just bring so much to the table, and it looks so good after. But like, how do you get there?
This is gonna sound so like it's not gonna make sense at first, but I would say in the beginning I was a terrible listener. I got excited about everything. A client would be like, and I was so addicted to like fixing people's lives with design that I'm like, tell me all your problems and I'll fix them. Not literally like saying that, but I'm like, so tell me about like your morning routine, your afternoon routine. And I would get so excited and want to suggest a million ideas instead of just listening to them complain. Not really complain, but just talk about their lifestyle and like what they do, what they enjoy, what they like about the house, what they don't, and digesting it. And I think the biggest thing to a good designer is truly listening without already having a reply. And it's so hard because you know so much. Like, you know, one little thing is going to change their life, or even on the first discovery call, I'm like, I know exactly how their kitchen's going to end up being. And I sound like a crazy person saying that, but you get to know the person. And a great example would be, actually, back up, I'll explain to you how I learned how to listen. I used to sell high-end kitchen cabinets, and they had the most amazing gadgets ever. It's a German engineered cabinet line, and Germans, they just over-engineer everything. So anything you could ever wish for, they had for an accessory. So hard to not want to show everything. So my uncle came to visit me at the studio, and sorry, I have like a dog around me whining. It's distracting. And he was like, Amy, I just want you to take me around the showroom, and I want you to pretend that I'm a client coming in. And I don't know what made him to do this, but he was like, here's the deal. Like, I wake up in the morning. If my wife's not up, I like to have ice cream. If she's up, I have a cup of coffee. And I was like, okay, that's weird, but okay. People say weirder stuff. And who am I to judge? That sounds amazing. So then he's like, and we do coffee, sometimes we do tea, but we really enjoy our mornings together. And he's like, and then she cooks dinner, and we'll have to talk with her about like how she likes to cook and everything. So as we're walking around, I'm like, well, this is great for coffee. This is great for organizing your silverware. And he's like, Amy, no, like, you can't show me a million things and my brain's already spinning. You need to show me like one or two things that shows that you're listening to what I'm saying, and then let me like want more, and let me kind of say like, oh, that's a great idea. Oh, well, what about this? Like, what if I'm making breakfast in the morning and I like to have cereal before? And I'm like, he's like, let me dictate what else I need, but just show me a couple of things that speak to what I've told you. And he's like, so start over. And I'm like, oh my gosh. He's like, do you wake up? How early are you waking up? He's like, usually before sunrise. I'm like, all right, how about we do just LED lighting in that one drawer where your silverware is, so you don't have to turn any lights on. When you open up the freezer to get your ice cream, there's already a light in there. So we'll just do a silverware drawer, and we can say it's just for like the late night snacks, and we can just leave out the early morning ice cream. And that's like, that'll change your life. Like, you'll have a drawer that lights up, and that's such an easy thing to add. And so he was like, this is exactly how you need to listen. And you can't, you get so excited and you think of all these things in your head, but not everyone, they're coming to you because they want you to help them, but they don't want you to overwhelm them. And I get so excited. I have to tell my clients in the beginning if I'm talking too much or I'm too excited, like slap me. I don't know, like tell me, Amy, like calm down. So I mean, a lot of my clients like it, and I think that's why they work with me, because they like the energy that I bring. But it can be overwhelming to a lot of clients.
I can relate a ton to that. I get very excited.
You can, yeah.
In a way of communicating, I found that it gets in the way of communicating, or like, you know, when you want to convince somebody of something, they'll be super excited about it, which is so counterintuitive. But I just left the client meeting, super high end, super crazy job, like dream job, and I've been trained enough now in more from like having bad experiences. Now I didn't have an uncle come in and coach me up there.
I know.
And I was to have a 2-hour meeting with them last 2 weeks ago and really listen and shut up and honestly listen.
Yeah.
I was really concerned about giving them what they wanted. And we brought the sample to them today. And again, it's like shutting up, saying my piece and like shutting up.
Yeah. It's
so hard to do when you're excited. It's so powerful.
It's one of those things too, where you do you always reflect after your meetings too, when you meet with a client and you're like, should I have just like stopped talking? Should I have not been honest? Should I just like saved it for the next meeting? Is it too soon to be this brutally? Actually, a case and example was I called you after a meeting with a client and I'm like, I have a hard time telling clients like that's just not going to look good. And especially when they're so in love with it, they're like, bring a cabinetry hardware to the table. And I'm like, just doesn't go with anything. I mean, it's a beautiful hardware. We can do it on your next mid-century modern home, but it wouldn't work in here. And I don't want you to like regret this, but it's hard for them because they can't see it. They just see a beautiful piece of hardware. Yeah. But so it's hard too when you get excited about things. But then it's also hard when you have to like tell your clients that what they picked out is awful, or that sofa that they've had for 20 years is great, even though you don't think it is, but you know you have to work around it and you understand the history of it. It's one of those things where learning how to, I think someone just commented, learning how to listen to your clients is very powerful for any kind of job, and 100%. That is why the initial call is so critically important. Not even to understand the scope of the job, just to see if you could put up with me for 6 months. Like, like, can you deal with me for 6 months? Okay, yes. Can I deal with you for 6 months? Yes. Okay, so we can do this job together. What's it gonna take?
and that, for me, there's this feeling of discomfort after you say like the hard thing, or you say, like I said a huge price today to the clients, massive, like probably the biggest price I've ever said to anyone, like face to face, and like just saying it and shutting up and like feeling the discomfort in the tension in my body, like in my, and just like waiting, watch it, digest it, and like not jumping in with like 5 little caveats and to like ease myself. Or in like your example with like, this isn't going to work. Like also saying like, here are the parameters I need. I need the house to myself. Well, what if we want to put the dish, can they put the appliances in? In the past, I would have been like, oh yeah, well, let them put the appliances in. It's only one. And then I'm just like, no, that's going to cause a cascading effect of this, this, and this that has to happen. And no, like, not if we're going to deal with what we're talking about. And that ability to feel the discomfort and like live in it for a minute is so powerful.
It really is. And you can feel it, like, at the point where I know I need to say something or be honest is when I physically can't listen to anything else that they're saying because I'm so scared about upsetting them on not I don't want to say not agreeing, but not being able to move forward with something that they've kind of presented as a non-negotiable. And at one point, there's been many jobs where in the beginning where I said, like, this is great. The clients are like, my onboarding process was very casual. Great, nice, like, how are you? What's your project like? Great client, great personality, but I didn't ask the really hard questions in the beginning. And then halfway through the project, I'm like, we both had two different visions of what my role was going to be. And they wanted me more as a consultant, but I'm having a really hard time letting go of things where I know what's going to come of letting them choose this crown molding. They're going to have 3/4 of an inch shadow line above their cabinets unless we do a stacked filler. And at that point, we have a beaded inset. It's just too busy. So I'm knowing all these things in my head, but I'm like, she just emailed me saying that she confirmed the cabinet plans and I didn't even get to look at them. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this isn't Amy Lynn Interiors. This is like, these are things that I can't allow myself to get involved with. And I think that'd be one of like the learning curves of figuring out how to communicate effectively and pausing and listening. I would say the other flip side of that is asking the right questions and like practicing them. And I have a whole list of open-ended questions because I struggled with open-ended questions. I don't know why. I just wanted a yes or no answer. And I'm like, I need to get more information out of them besides, do you like this? Yes. Okay. What do you like about this? Like, and I found myself after getting those subsurface level responses where I practice on digging deeper. And then eventually now I've gotten away from those surface level questions where it's like, how are you? How's the weather? Those kind of things. Like, and I've just dug right into, so tell me about what you like about option 1. Let's dig into why. And so it's interesting. I would say I'd recommend for every designer, every profession, write a bunch of open-ended questions. And on the flip side of that, write a bunch of things that you need to know as a painter. What is your level of expectations? Do you want to be able to rub your face on the wall and feel like you're brushing up against butter? Like, do you do you want your friends to not be able to touch your walls when they come over because they're high gloss? Like, I don't know, like, just things, questions that are awkward, but they almost like create this rapport with the person where they can feel that they can be honest with you about anything, kind of thing. Am I rambling?
Oh, I do, on a lot of repaints, I do a similar, just like, does this bother you?
Yeah.
About this, like, trying to like pull out, what is this client going to be like at the end of the project when we walk through?
Yeah.
And because then I can understand, like, how thorough is this paint job going to be? Because it used to be, like you were saying, like, you get so excited. I was giving them the paint job that I wanted.
Right.
And,
yeah.
And you start to realize, like, wait a second, this person doesn't care about the paint job I want. They care about the paint job that they want. And so if you want to be in business for a while and actually make people happy, you have to start to give them what they want.
And let's talk about paint, because I, in the beginning days, used to always cut paint out. I'm like, it's just paint. They're like, it's $17,000 to paint every single room in the house, the exterior, just one door, whatever. And they're like, we'll just get that done another time. Or we'll end up painting a couple of our rooms ourselves. Let's just have them paint the kitchen and the front door, and whatever, we'll do the rest. And I'm like, all right, yeah, like, that's fine. Not even understanding the severity of it. Like, they go to paint their bedrooms and they've already hung a TV in 5 different locations, and they're not prepping it. They're just painting over it. then they go to install the cabinetry built-ins on one wall, and then you have all these open holes. Like, and I'm like, at one point, I'm like, I didn't notice it when I was in the middle of it and just cutting the paint budget. I noticed it when we had a good paint job. I was like, this is what a finished product looks like. Like this, there's like everything looks flawless. Everything just looks completed. It just looks so well put together, and you can't really pinpoint why. But then as a designer, I'm like, what is so different about this? And here I am like trying to pick it apart. And I'm like, is it because there's drapes? Is it because there's nice baseboard? Is it because there's no baseboard heat? Like what? And I'm like, no, it's the friggin' paint. I've never had a project where I've had a professional painter come in, and after working with Nick on one of them, I did a small bathroom project in Westboro, and the painter flaked on them, and for whatever reason, the guy who built the cabinets ended up having to paint the walls, and it looked atrocious. I was like, this beautiful high gloss tile and this beautiful marble, and it's up against this like god awful patched drywall, wasn't even sanded down to be like, the prep work was just gone, and they just slapped paint over it. And I'm like, oh my god, I can't even appreciate this anything. And even the client was like, I don't know why I didn't pay just to have like a different painter do it, or just say stop and let's remove the paint from it, and we'll have someone come when he can cut, like when he's available. But I couldn't get over. It's like that saying is, how does the saying go? You don't know like what's good unless you see it, or like you don't know what you've been missing until you see it. And with paint, it was just paint, and now it's like, yeah, it is just paint, but it is everything. Like it ties everything together. So
Yeah, I've been accused of ruining a lot of people's
yeah, thanks.
going forward. Like once they see what good is, that you can't go back.
Oh, I see the orange peel gloss all the time, and I'm like, oh, like
Yeah,
why even waste money on that?
just don't go gloss.
Don't do gloss if you are not paying. If you don't have just like money to blow, do not pick gloss. Just don't. Like, save your bank account, save your misery. Like, gloss is so beautiful, but it has to be done right. It needs to look like a mirror. Like, it's the gloss wine cellar that you did was incredibly breathtaking. I was completely blown away by that. So yeah, you've completely ruined. I think I've sent you stories, kind of like a jerk, but like I'm like, oh my, I can't even appreciate. It's like Ken. Ken has forever changed my grain matching and book matching. If I see it, anything that's not book matched, it like makes my skin crawl.
Yeah.
So
And I always tell clients like a good paint job, it's about feeling more than it's about like picking out the individual things. You know,
yeah,
in a job, and also with Fine Paints of Europe, it adds another level to it. But you will feel the difference in the room.
100%,
But you
100%.
on it. That's kind of what it is you can't put your finger on it, but you feel the difference.
Oh yeah, completely. And I think that's the same thing with like a well-designed room, or yeah, I think it goes for a lot of things. When they're done well, you can't pinpoint it. It's just so, I think we're also trained to pick out the faults in a room. So when we can't pick out a fault, we're like, huh,
Yeah.
wait a minute. I like everything about this room. But yeah, it definitely is interesting how paint can make a big difference.
Yeah.
But
And same with
yeah,
design is one of those things that it's similar to paint, where when it's good, you feel it, but sometimes you can't pick out why it's so good. It's
yeah,
the total package is what makes it, like the continuity in design is what I love when I work with good designers. And the continuity of the room is so strong that you can't even figure out that's what it is until you have seen enough of it.
right.
Oh man, like this is something greater than the sum of its parts.
Have you seen the SNL skit of Pharaoh and Ball?
I have.
It's so good. It's so good. I sent it to Tyler because one of our clients was specifying. This is another thing, actually, a great paint conversation where Everyone has their favorite white, their favorite gray. Everyone has it, and I combat it all the time as a designer, where they're like, "Oh, I want to use, we'll say Chantilly lace because my friend's sister loves it, and I saw it in her house, and I really, really like it." And I'm like, "Okay, do you know what color temperature bulb she has, or does she have like 2,700 Kelvin or 3,000?" 2000 like what's her lighting situation like? Does she have a lot of natural light? So it is interesting because whites, everyone is influenced by what friends and family have said their favorite white is. And with this particular client, she asked a designer friend, and she had recommended a Farrow and Ball paint, a white one, and Tyler was like, what is Farrow and Ball, and what, like, I don't know if he even knew what Farrow and Ball was. So I sent him that skit, and he's like, color, like, it was the funniest, like, but I do it. Farrow and Ball has beautiful paint colors, don't get me wrong, like, and their paint is phenomenal. But I'm curious, on your standpoint, what is the difference between a Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, and Farrow and Ball? Because I feel like Fine Paints of Europe is like way out there.
Their paint is not phenomenal.
Okay.
Their color. The project I just left, I think we have the part of the project that we're going to do, and we're switching to Fine Paints of Europe in Farrow and Ball color.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, Farrow and Ball is a beautiful color chart and a
beautiful
genius marketing company with pretty inferior paint for the price. There's
wow.
And
that's great to know.
Most painters will tell you that. It's, we don't like the paint. It's not high quality paint. It's not easy to apply, but it's Farrow and Ball, and the color's beautiful, and they've really targeted designers to the point where designers think it is great, and the color is. So I would say the difference in quality of paint is just that, like what's in the gallon of paint. So Fine Paints of Europe is the holy grail. They're the highest quality paint. It's just paint in a gallon. All the other paints are that same paint, essentially, maybe not as high quality ingredients, but it's just paint. And then they add fillers to the paint that are really cheap to make it cheaper. So they're like diluting the paint, but not making it runnier. If you like, they're adding like clay or talc or mica, these inert, like volume filling things in the gallon that dilute paint. And so now in a wall that's like $30 a gallon paint, which means it's mostly like clay, it's going to be rough and porous, and the light's going to die in that surface. It's not going to reflect out the color that's.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So again, the room won't feel that color. It won't glow that color because it's a porous surface because of all that clay. So Fine Paints of Europe and other like the super premium paints have less filler, which means they're going to be smoother, which means the light's going to reflect better.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So
I just knew I appreciated good paint.
Yeah. And so, like rooms painted with the same color in two different like qualities of paint. One will feel like the color and glow, and the other one will be just like, ugh.
100%. Okay.
So
interesting.
And again, Fine Paints of Europe can be made in any color. So it's just when you spec the paint, you spec like the quality of the resins and the pigments, and then you can have it tinted in any color.
Okay, so that makes sense why when I said like a 25% sheen, and I only know my sheens based on custom cabinets that I will specify with like Country Craft or Ken, and I'll specify like what I want the sheen to be, and I'd never been able to actually like specify a specific number sheen when it came to paint. I had to choose between like an eggshell matte, and every paint line had different sheens, and getting a sample, like getting actually that on the wall to look the way, like just as a sample for the client to approve of, was never the same once it was applied with a bigger gallon. There's just so much discrepancy. So
yeah, and so again, like I like the numbers too, and we prefer the numbers in cabinetry. It's objective. There's a meter.
Yeah.
On the surface, and it will tell you what the degrees of sheen are.
Wow.
If you look at it, but every company's technical data sheet for their paint will have that degrees of sheen.
Okay.
So you can look up like, okay, it's going to be Benjamin Moore Aura. We can see like what is the degrees of sheen of a satin from Benjamin Moore Aura versus an eggshell versus a. So I think it is always best to talk in degrees of sheen, and you can just go look at the technical data sheet to figure out what that sheen actually is.
Okay, that makes sense. I had no idea about the paint, but I'm happy to know that they're all so like basically Benjamin Moore, Sherwin-Williams, and Ferramball are all kind of in the same category, and then it's okay. That makes sense.
Fine Paints of Europe is a far more robust product. Now, Sherwin-Williams just came out with a wall paint that they say will compete with Fine Paints of Europe wall paint.
Yep.
I'm interested to try it, but I will say that I would at all costs not use Sparrow and Ball paint and use their colors.
Yeah, cool. That's good to know.
Yeah, it's we run into it all the time. I could go into it forever, but that's really kind of where it ends.
Yeah. All right. That makes sense. I learned something new, so this is great.
I think the more that designers and architects can understand the paint and the products, like it's so valuable to the client, because the client does, like, you're bringing like you're talking about the final product.
Mm-hmm.
When an architect on a multi-million-dollar home just like writes this general paint spec and it's just like, well, anything similar to this, and it's like, how are you going to care about everything else in the house and then like not care about the type of paint, the actual product that's on all the surfaces,
Right?
And only care about the color of it. So I do like when designers are like, no, I want this product. And at the higher end with where we are working, it is generally Fine Paints of Europe is the thing that someone will spec, because it doesn't add that much cost to a project.
Yeah.
And it does add a lot of value.
It's interesting. I was talking to another painter, and he was asking me like, how do you get in with designers? Like, you guys seem so unapproachable. And I was like, really? I don't feel that. Like, us designers are like, we want I'll speak for myself. I love when reps reach out to me. I hate when they just show up. It drives me nuts, because I'm like, I already deal with like a million phone calls as it is that I have to either answer or ignore and get back to. Shouldn't say ignore, but I just focus on what I'm doing and then get back to it. But cut it however you want. And so when it comes to approaching designers, and I think that as designers, we don't know what we're missing just because we haven't either been exposed to it, or someone hasn't taken the time to literally be like, no, you're meeting up. We're going to have coffee. Do you drink tea, coffee? Would you prefer lunch? Like, and get to know them as a person versus trying to sell your product, or feel them out, because maybe they would rather, maybe they want to be sold on something. But I feel like we all read people really well in this industry, because we're a service. So it's important for us to read who our client is, and in front of you is a designer, and it's like, okay, would she want to learn about paint, like you just explained to me, and say like, what's your extent on paint? Have you ever run into issues with a terrible paint job? Have you ever had a great paint job? I would love to see what your level of paint has been, or what your experience has been with it, and be like, I know it's just paint to you, but for me it's everything. And like, they'll appreciate that. Like, when it's something you're so passionate about it, like, that's why a designer is a designer. They're not just a designer because they have a degree in it. This is like an industry where you're not in it if you're not passionate. And I think that they'll really appreciate if you just like get to know them, understand why they started the industry, what do they do for fun. Everyone that I meet, I always have their coffee order or tea order. I'm a big coffee drinker, and if I show up empty-handed or without something for someone and they're gonna put up with me for an hour, I feel like I have to like kind of bring something to be like, because I'm very particular on certain things, and like my contractors are as well. It's just a great way to build rapport, is to have something in common, and figuring out whether that's like as simple as like, you guys both drink coffee, and maybe black. I don't know. Or you're both from like the same town, or you both work for the same client, or whatever it is. Like, I think just getting to know them as a person before selling, for me, has made it better, because then I'm not picking you because I like the paint that you like. I'm picking you because I want to work with you, just like I'm picking my clients. Like, I only work with people that I enjoy working with, because you come in at the end of it. This is like, that's where all the budget gets cut. Like, you're in the fire zone. So it is so important to have a painter that you know is going to make you look good, because God forbid, like, they did a half job on all the trim, and it's your job to prep it and make it look like $1 million still. And so it's interesting. I think that as a painter, um, you're easily cut, and you can easily walk into a zone where you're like, how am I supposed to make this look like? This isn't what I was told I'd be walking into. And to have a designer that you can call and be like, hey, what are we going to do? This isn't what I was thinking about. Like, this isn't what I was expecting to walk into. How it's going to be an extra like 2 days of prep work that I wasn't planning for. Then you kind of have someone that you can bounce things off of. And maybe she's like, all right, well, let me call the contractor and talk to him about it. Maybe he's not even aware of it, but it's just like one extra level of like a team player in your team that's not under your payroll. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Well, Jake Bresson just said it. That's gold. What you just said, I think I heard you say it. I don't remember when. I think it was you recently about
Yep.
painter, like designers work with painters that they like.
100%.
And that's like, and that was.
And they don't work with painters that do a great job.
Yes. Like,
yes.
my mind is blown, and I want to go cry in a corner, because for like years, I'm just like, this technician. It is the same thing with clients.
Yeah.
Like this technician that wants to like go nerd out about and talk to them about, and it's like, no, we're human beings. People want to work with people they want to work that they like.
Yeah.
And that idea of like networking should be connecting with human beings, and not like talking about the like what you can do and how it looks.
It's, yeah. You won't catch me at a networking event. I can't handle how's business? It's great. I like can't like tell me something fun about you. Like, why did you wear that bright pink shirt? You look like you must be a fun human. Like, let's have some conversations about like things that matter. I don't want to talk about how busy I am, because even if I'm not busy, I'm gonna lie and tell you I am anyways. Like, there's no point to these conversations. And so I think that even I like find myself, like, I just had a hard conversation with one of my builders. I'm like, look, your tile guy sucks. Like, why are you still using him? I get, like, if you're going to, like, if you're walking with him through this and you're massaging him and figuring out, like, what his strengths are and what his weaknesses are, like, I get that. But can we either accept that he's not going to get to the level that we want, and we're going to have to either sit him down and figure out, because I don't want to just cut him out because he's not good. I'd rather give him the chance to, like, perform to the level that we want, or we're going to look for another tile guy. Like, we all get so comfortable with our subs because that's what we've used all the time. And then we each grow. Sometimes our subs outgrow us, where they're like, it's going to cost us $10,000 to do all the tile work. And we're like, holy crap, you usually come in at like $6,000. We're going to have to find someone else. And then we finally catch up to their caliber. So it's not always like, it can go both ways, I guess is what I'm saying. And with a painter, when you start out, you find a painter, you like him, his price is great, you're familiar with it, it's second nature. You can put in a line item for that paint job because you're used to it, and it just becomes second nature. And then you get stuck in this like continuous routine of using people that don't elevate you, I guess. I mean, it happens all the time.
It does. And so it's like works both ways. If mediocre or bad painters are staying busy with designers because they're easy, like they're least nice to work with and their work sucks, like this, it's a great, it just goes to show, we talk about this all the time on here, that like a great paint job will not keep you busy and will not.
But even as a great designer, being a great like it goes in every profession, and it's interesting.
Just that I wish I knew it earlier, that it's not about, you have to have a good product, but
100%.
have a good product that does not ensure greatness or a busy schedule or a profitable company. There's
I'd
so
say persistence. Persistence definitely prevails. Like if you just consistently, I'm like, and even if the designer is completely blowing you off, be like, look, here's the deal. I love what you do. You do amazing. Like I'm not just like so random, like closing my eyes and like opening up some book and just being like, okay, of designers and like I'm gonna call this person this. Like I selected you because I love what you do. Stroke their ego because that's 100%. You wouldn't be calling them if it wasn't someone that you thought you could be elevated and they could be elevated from it. So I think that that's something where being honest about that in the beginning. And I love asking any person that I work with, what's your dream project? And everyone said, every builder that says whatever the client wants, I'm like, nah, like, no. Like that, I mean, that's such a surface level response. Like, tell me what do you want to build like a tree house for like a boy that wants to be a professional chef and he's gonna have like this little mini child kitchen? Like, get creative. Like, you're in the creative industry. What is you don't have like a dream project? Like for you, what would be your dream paint job?
I mean, we're the one we're on right now that was the dream, and it's
Yeah.
like times 3 rooms, so a black gloss room.
Yeah, that's cool.
Rooms and a 5-story handrail in black gloss all at once. Like I would have told you last year that was my dream.
That's pretty cool.
It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy, and I'm like, I can't wait. Like I'm looking at this blank slate. It's all white in like primer right now, and you look at it, and I cannot wait until it is black gloss piano finish everywhere. Like,
wait, you're not talking about the project in Southborough, are you? Or is that another piano black?
There's a project we just started in Beacon Hill.
Oh, okay.
It's 2 full rooms. It's a 4-story brownstone. So the second floor is 2 rooms and a bathroom.
So cool.
All 3 of those rooms are ceilings, walls, and trim black gloss.
This is so cool. Oh, I can't believe I mean, you know I love black.
I know. You're gonna have to come check it out.
I definitely want to.
Up with the idea too, which was crazy.
That's really cool.
It is going to be Boston Design Guide was there shooting today. They're going to be.
That's what it was. Okay.
That's
pretty cool.
I mean, it just gives me chills thinking of how insane it's going to be.
Yeah.
And because of that, like I gave this client a massive price break, because I wanted it so bad. I've never wanted it so bad in my life.
That's awesome.
And so, this was our marketing budget for the next year and a half, and best of it.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Hey, you've got to do it. Are you going to celebrate, or is the marketing expense your way of celebrating?
Oh, no. We're going to crush this project. It's going to put us out into a level in the city that we have not been at yet. It will. There's not a higher level, more. I don't think it's going to be a more intense and high profile project than this when it's over.
That's awesome. Congrats.
So it's exciting and it's also terrifying. But yeah, that would be like if I would have told you before the wine room, my dream project was a gloss room, and then after the wine room, I would have said just 1 full room, and now it's like 3 full rooms.
That's pretty badass. That's cool.
Yeah. What about you? What's your dream project?
So I've always wanted to design the inside of yachts. I did like sailing for many summers in Marco Island in Florida, and I went on a couple of like our clients would come on the boat and then they'd invite us out on their yachts after, and I just go in them, and a lot of them are like nice, but like dated nice, like lots of like mahogany, high gloss wood, and it just was like, and like tan leather, and some of them had like red leather, and I don't know, like the inside of cars look super sporty and fun, and I'm like, why did the inside of yachts kind of like miss the boat a little bit, literally? And so I was just like, I don't know, that's just been my dream job, and I think one day I almost picture myself like wanting to live in a boat for a while and renovate it, and then or a yacht, and then sell it or just flip them. I know it's a weird kind of concept to flip a yacht, but that would be my ultimate dream job is to do that. Be pretty badass. And then you can come and paint everything in high gloss.
Oh, and Fine Paints of Europe is marine enamel, so it's meant for boats.
Really? I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
So
I know a designer. I know of her. I've met her a couple times in Rhode Island. Maloney Interiors, and that's
out of Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Jen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I knew her from the ASID committee.
Yes, she was on ASID. That's how I met her.
Okay.
Yeah,
she's awesome.
And that's I was like, oh, you're a interior yacht designer?
It's pretty badass. It's really cool.
One of my clients has a massive yacht, and they redesign it, and that's the thing about yachts, is they get redesigned fairly frequently when you have and I think it was like, there's a company in Newport, when you drive out of, I always drive by them now. I met the guy, and he gave me his card at one point, but that's all they do too, is just yacht design.
That's cool. I'll have to check them out in Newport. I'm gonna write that down. Yeah,
remind me I'll help you find it. They have a logo. It's like a red triangle, and I want to in Newport, because I always, on the way out of Newport, you always drive by it.
Okay. I definitely driven by that. I always see WKP's signs everywhere when I get off the bridge. I'm like, Wade, you're killing it. You're absolutely killing it. So that's cool.
Yeah. So more of your design process. Because we're working together. You just helped out one of my clients, and I think even then I kind of learned about a little bit of what you do and don't do. You're not going to do every aspect of the design of an interior. Is that correct?
So I actually, when you refer the client, I actually don't do usually like those spin-off consoles. So I'm like, you know what? Like high gloss black kitchen, white kitchen. Her style seems cool. She knows Cindy Stumpo. And I'm like, she must be like this amazing, like super talkative client who like is passionate about things and like nailed it. That's exactly who she is. She's great. She had great energy. So I'm happy that I did, but I typically don't do just like consoles because I have a control problem. I don't like having to work with existing things that aren't their style. And I struggled so much during that meeting, but it was such a great, there was actually at one point of the meeting where I was like, I don't think that I'm going to be able to help her. Like, I don't know. I can't, like the energy just like wasn't flowing for me, and the stuff just wasn't like clicking. And I'm like, okay, well, we could do this, but shoot, we'd have to do this. And she's like, well, we don't want to spend money on new cabinetry. I'm like, okay, that closes that door. Okay, this idea. And she's like, well, if we redo the hood, then we have to redo the backsplash, and I don't want to do that. And I'm like, okay, so that closes that door. And I'm like starting to sweat a little bit. Like, I don't know, like, I don't know how I'm going to like invite myself to the door at some point and be like, I'm so honored. Like, I want to help you so badly because like, she's just such a sweet, sweet human being. And I was like, we're going to figure this out. So I was like, okay, I think she saw me. I like took a deep breath. I was like, all right, I have an idea. I'm just going to spit out some ideas that I can see working. And you can 100% be like, absolutely not, Amy. Like, nope, not going to happen. So I was like, all right, one idea. We're going to keep everything in the kitchen white. We're going to do the island piano black, the coffee bar white as well. We're going to remove some of the decals that are on the cabinets. And then we're going to do a black strip on the hood where the shelf is to kind of like I don't want to say like anchor, but like hug the kitchen a little bit. And then she has brass restoration hardware pendants, so like massive like globes, very like industrial looking. And then she has this very like grand luxe kitchen with like a lot of ornate details. And there's a lot of there's like, and I'm all about like mixing classic with trendy finishes and trendy features. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna treat the brass as trendy. So how do we make this into a classic kitchen? So one, we've got a white kitchen, great. We've brought in a classical element. Now the hardware that she wants, it's like a Buster and Punch hardware, and it's a super trendy hardware. And she wants to do it in brass to complement the pendants. And I'm like, would be so lovely if these were like flat slab cabinet door fronts, and it would look so good. And like I see where she's going with it. And then these are the hardware I would use after she's told me that, like, it's a non-negotiable that she wants to use those hardware. And I'm like, and then this is the hardware that we do, but we do it in brass. But since it kind of complements the bead in the cabinet, it's going to tie it all together and not feel like we're, you know, pushing the envelope too much. And she's like, you really think so? And I'm like, oh, I'm like, this is going to be so bad. Like, do I say no and be like, just kidding? And be like, we're going to do everything you want? Or do I move forward? And I was like, I do. And she's like, I love it. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, this is why I can't do these things. I get like so like, it's actually funny. One of my clients just commented on here, and we got in like a fight, not a fight, but I told her like, we're not doing this style door. She wanted to do a barn door in her mid-century home. And I'm like, we're not doing a barn door in your mid-century home. Like, and I'm friends with her too. I'm like, I can't come over to your house all the time and see a trendy barn door and admit I can't do it. And I text her after, like, I feel like I just got in like a argument with my best friend, and telling you can't do something when you really can. It's your home. Like, I'm just telling you, like, you hired me for this, and I want to give you my honest opinion. And maybe my delivery sucked. I don't know, but it's hard doing spin-off stuff because you don't have control. So
So
that was
more
my long.
than is like starting from scratch stuff, right?
I love starting from scratch is my go-to, because it's like, if you're gonna spend any money on a renovation, don't just put a band-aid on it. Like, do it exactly how you want. And if that means you need to wait 3 or 4 more years to plan, to save, whatever it is, like, spending any of your money. And I hate when people say, oh, I want to spend my money for someone else to enjoy, because I want to consider resale. It's like, why would you want to spend all of your hard-earned money to imagine what the next person is going to want? Everyone wants to change anything. No one has the same taste. So why would you design this to cater to someone else? Like, you're going to live here and you're going to want to enjoy it. So don't spend the money for someone else. It like that. Oh my gosh, that's like a trigger point. I have actually had to like talk myself, because clients don't realize they're just programmed to say it. Just like they're programmed to say, I want a ton of storage. Do you? Do you need a ton of, you don't really have anything, so what do you need the storage? So it's like we have to realize things as designers and as painters, that we'll say things where we don't even realize that we're saying it. We're kind of like, I don't want to say brainwashed, but we are. We see all these TV shows and we're like, we have these preset expectations for paint. A great example, oh, I saw on, before you even say your price, like, oh, well, in their minds, like, wait, no, I thought it was going to be like $8,000, but yet they've never hired a painter before. So where is this information coming from? And it's either a previous conversation for someone where they talked about pricing, it's on TV. And so it's like trying to figure out why people say things that they want, and hearing them, and then like not challenging it, but like digging a little bit deeper is really where the magic happens.
So you take like the bones of the structure of a place that's being gutted, and then you use your fancy computer program and you like make it all come to life in 3D, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because after I go to a home where there's like everything's already, like, they haven't done demo yet, we'll take measurements and things. I've now gone, after that step, I go and I make a goal for each of the designs, where it's like, okay, the goal for design option 1 is going to be X, Y, and Z. I can't get all of the wish lists in this one, but I'm going to put that in my design goal for option 2. So I'll go through each of, and I usually do 2 to 3 different designs. Usually I plan for the first and second one, and I automatically have a design goal. And then as I'm curating both of the designs, one, it comes to me where I'm like, this is great. I can't fit it in this one. I'm going to put it in the next one. And so that's how the third one comes to me. But yeah, I specialize in